Okay, the next surface we're going to be created is a surface called a birail. From the name birail, that means we're going to have two rails, kind of two paths. Like it's similar to the extrude. The extrude had a profile and a path. So a birail is going to have a profile, but now it's going to have two paths. We can also have a birail with more than two profiles, because the birail surface, we come on the surfaces here. You see the birail, we have birail 1, 2, and birail 3 plus 2. That means we can create a birail with one profile, with two profiles, or with three or more profiles. Okay, and the settings for that is here. So from the shape, you will see what we get. So let's create a birail now. So first thing we want to do is we want to create a curve from probably the top view. So just create maybe we just use a pencil this time, and just drag out a curve this way, and drag out another one here. Okay, so we now have two curves. Okay, so I go into my perspective view now, and this time I'm gonna come here so we could see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm gonna try and bring these guys a little bit closer. Looks as if they are quarreling with each other, but alright, so yeah, this is D key, and centralize them back. Right. Okay, so I can come in here and make some adjustments to my curves. I'm going to the control vertex mode. I'm going to got a lot of vertices. Okay, so I could use my soft selection, pick a key, and I could raise it up. Okay, so just to change the shape. Okay, so I'm basically just using my axis to move the select just raising, making some changes to my object, so it's not pretty. Okay, so I have a kind of funny looking shape here. Interestingly funny. But it's going to be uniquely, just want to create something like that. Alright, so now based on this shape we've created, we're going to create a birail. We're going to create a surface that will run across this shape. Alright, so I'll go back to object mode. So for this one, okay, so next thing I want to create is the profile. Now for the birail to work, it's similar to the planar. The birail needs the curves to be not flat this time, but it needs the curves to be connected together. They need to be stitched together. If the profile does not connect to the path, it will not create a surface. So unlike the extrude, the profile does need to be connected to the path, but for this, the profile does need to be connected to the path. Alright, so I'm going to use this time I'm going to use my EP curve tool, and I want to make sure I draw an EP curve across to create a path. So first of all, I want to make sure it is snapped to this curve. So I have my snapping tools here, and there is a shortcut for them usually. So if I hold C, I'll be snapping to curves. We have snapping to grid, which would be X. So if I have snapping to points, which would be V. So on like that. So I'm going to snap to my curves right now, and you see if I select this curve, you see there's a point created and it snapped directly on that curve. So I'll do it again. So you see me, I can drag and I'll just put it here at the tip of the curve. Then I go into one of my views, probably my front view, then in turn off the snap and create my CV curve. Then from here I go back into my perspective view and I want to snap it back to this. So I hit C again and come to this curve and snap it there. Right, so now I have my curves snapped together. Okay, I'm going to create a very crazy looking shape here. The shape is really going to be weird. Okay, then I come into my bi-rail, and if I double click on it, I could have the settings for my bi-rail 1. This is a bi-rail 1 tool. So you have proportional profile. I'm going to create all this in different methods so that you could see what each of them means. All right, first of all, I want to create bi-rail, and the bi-rail tool has a process. It will expect you to first select the profile, then select the two path. So let's go with bi-rail 1 tool, and you'll see to first tell you that the profile has been selected. So now it's going to tell you to select two rail curves. If you look down at the bottom here, you would see it. So look at profile selected. Now select two rail curves. So these are the two rail curves. So I could drag and select those two rail curves, and you see a surface is created. I told you it's going to be a pretty weird surface. So that's how the bi-rail tool works, and we've created a surface. Okay, so if I shift this away, just like every other curve, we have history turned on, so I can move this and make changes here, and then you'll see changes appear here. I want to show you something quite different here. All right. Okay, so now I want to create a new bi-rail curve using the same profile, but I want to show you what the different settings mean. So this one was proportional, and I'm going to set this to non-proportional. Okay, and hit apply. Okay, so I want to select the bi-rail profile, then I'm going to select the two paths. Now when you look at it, they look similar, but they're actually a difference. So, and this is the beginning of the profile. So if I shift this away, let's see what that means. I'll come under this and duplicate the curve and move it away. So if I come to this point here, for the first knobs selection, you could see has the as the object goes along the path, there are some changes on it in the scale. So if I come to my scale tool, for instance, and scale it down, you would see it fits exactly on the surface. So it starts off and it has a fall off distance up to this, but now this was the proportional. If I come in here and come check it against this other curve or this other surface, you'll see a little difference. It's supposed to match, but it doesn't quite match the way it matched with this one. So this is what proportional and non-proportional does. Okay, it kind of makes the fall off go outside of the proportion, so it doesn't really maintain the angle. So I could come in here and make changes to the objects, and raise this up, push this in, just depending on my choice of design. We'll actually push this down, so now we have a higher just playing around the menu. So just to create some objects, so we see they're similar but not exactly similar, just very minute change, but it's just like every other NURBS surface. When you create it, you can use the curves later to manipulate the shape. Okay, so what happens if I select a curve point and move it out of the way? This is what happens. Bam. Objects disappeared. Why? It's not connected. The points are not connected. So let's go to B so that I'll be able to select just a single point. So whenever we lose this connection, we lose the surface, and that's what I was talking about. That similar to the planar, when the surfaces are not together, they are following a particular rule, they will not connect. So to connect it back when you're in this situation, probably you make some awful point changes and you're like, oh my god, I've messed up and I want to get this guy back and I can't seem to attach it. So you come, some days you can get lucky and you get them attached. It doesn't really need to be on the edge of the surface, just as long as the points meet. They don't really need to be at the edge of each other. But if you want it to be at the edge back, so for this one, the same thing, you hold down the C, but you use your middle mouse to click and attach it back to the surface, and that's it. Okay, so remember, they have to be connected. Alright, so back to the object mode. Now, working on the bi-rail 2 curve, that requires 2 rails. So if I have like this one that we duplicated, probably I just make some changes to the curve and bring this down until it has a different design from the first one. Okay, and yeah, something like that. It's a different design. Okay, so I need to attach this ones to this point as well. So let's come first of all into my object mode and move it back to when it gets close enough. I don't like that point being that way. So it's back. That doesn't really matter though. Okay, so I select this point, hold down the C, middle mouse button, and drag it to this point. Okay. So now I want to drag it to this point here. So I click on this, hold down C, middle mouse, drag, and I'm going to attach it to this point here. You have to drag it across the curve you want to match it to. Then I come to the other side, do the same thing, hold down C, middle mouse, drag along the surface I want to match it to, and bam. So now I'm going to create a bi-rail 2. Okay, so if I come on the surfaces, bi-rail 2 tool. So if I come in here, you see I still have some of those settings, the same settings, but I have some new additions here. I have first profile and second profile because it's going to create 2 profiles. So I'm going to use direction. So if I click on bi-rail, you'd see it wants me to select two profile curves. So I select the first profile and the second profile. Then you now select the two rail curves, which would be this and this. And now we have a curve that follows the two profiles. Okay, so bi-rails are used to create some uneven kinds of surfaces. You could create a water body, you could create a landscape, you could create a slide, a mud slide, whatever you want to create. It's very handy for creating that. So the bi-rail 3 option, 3+ option, requires 3 or more profiles. But the reason why it's called a bi-rail, just like bicycle, 2 tires, so bi-rails, that is 2 rails, by 2. So that's how we use the bi-rails, and we'll be using it in our modeling sessions. So don't forget its use. You can always go back to the video to understand how they then play around, then experiment. But very importantly, don't forget that the profiles and the rails have to be stitched together, and we stitch to surface. So when you are creating them, you can hold down the C and the left mouse button. But if you mix them and you want to reconnect them, then you can hold down C and the middle mouse button, dragging across the path that you want the other curve to attach to. And that's it. That's it about bi-rails. Pretty straightforward object. Just create your profiles and your path and or rails. So, and then you have it.